Peeps, so I've just wrapped up filming the very first episode of Ade and Friends. Massive shout out to Adam, Noah, and Coyote with his crazy background. You guys are going to see it in a minute. Thanks to those guys for taking the time out to appear on the very first episode. There was a few issues with sound. Apologies. It was the first one. We are going to get that sorted as time goes on. I have said for a long time that I want you guys to get involved in the conversation. So this is your chance, right? If you want to be on Addy and Friends, I'm going to try and do it every single weekend. Then send me an email. I've had tons of emails. I can't lie to you. I've had about 30 or 40 emails. So that's not really tons, is it? Of people that want to get involved. So I am going to do like a first come, first serve basis. So those of you that want to get involved, you've got opinions and you're not afraid to get on camera, drop me an email and I will respond and we'll get you on and we'll go back and forth with discussions. I do want to get on some guys from America. It'd be nice to hear what they think of things. So I do think our opinions differ a little bit. So it'd be nice to hear from them. But yeah, enjoy it. Again, apologies for the issue of sound. I'm not quite sure what I did wrong in that Zoom call, but there is a bit of reverb, is it? Or echoing. But yeah, enjoy it for now. Let me know what you think. And let me know what you think about Coyote's crazy Matrix background. Peace. All right, let's get straight into this. Adam, I'm going to kick off with you. Last week, we got the big breaking news that Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua have agreed personal terms for a showdown, possibly in the summer of 2021. Are you excited by this? Or is it so far in the future, possibly, again, 12 months away, that it's difficult to get excited about?
I'm really excited, to be fair. It's the heavyweight fight that we all want to see. Say what you will about Fury, about AJ. It's the fight we all want to see. It's the undisputed fight now as well. It is a bit far in the future at the moment. Obviously, AJ's got to get past Pulev. Fury's got to get past Wilder. You've got Dillian White in the mix. You've got Usyk in the mix. That's obviously a big problem. There's obviously some hurdles there. But no, I'm really excited about it. It is, like I say, it is a bit far in the future, so it's hard to get too excited just yet, and everything that's going on in the world at the moment with COVID-19 as well. So obviously it doesn't feel quite real yet, but obviously Eddie Hearn's done his bits on YouTube. Tyson Fury's done his bits on YouTube saying that the fight's happening. I haven't seen any from AJ yet, to be fair. But no, I'm really excited about it, to be fair. And it's going to be I'm sure it's going to be a massive fight. And it'll be a long time before we have two heavyweight champions from Britain again, in my view, at the same time. So it's a fight that's got to happen.
Noah, I'm going to chuck the same question to you as well. You heard what Adam said there. He is excited, but he did mention the mandatory situations, Usyk, look, possible injuries. Are you excited as well, or are you like me, where, yes, you want to see the fight, but again, we're talking possibly 12 months away?
20% excited, because obviously I want to see it, but I think, like you say, it's a million miles away. There's so many things in the way in terms of the fights that they've got. You've got the Dillian White mandatory that the head of the WBC is saying he's going to go ahead no matter what. And I think the fact of, on a separate subject, Amir Khan and Kell Brook, they had me like hook, line and sinker for years out. It's definitely going to happen. So now I'm very pessimistic about it till I see it. So he's definitely a step in the right direction, but I wouldn't say I'm excited just yet.
Cody, what's your thoughts in this situation? Again, I feel like we're so close. We've been here before, but I feel like we're rolling the dice again. I think AJ will get past Pulev. Maybe that's just because I'm an AJ fan, but I do think AJ will get past Pulev. Deontay Wilder, I think, is going to be a problem. We're rolling the dice again here, aren't we? We've seen the Wilder-Fury fights twice. Personally, I thought Fury won both of those. Obviously, he won the second one clearly, but I thought he won the first one as well. Why do we need to see it again? Look, yes, contractually, we know that he's obliged to fight, but we don't need to see it again. Are they rolling the dice again with Wilder?
Well, I personally don't want to see a third time because I definitely think Fury has the beating of Wilder, and I think he's going to do it a third time. And let's face it, it was such a terrible beating. It was not competitive at all. So just based on that reason, I don't think there should be a third fight. But I understand there's a contract, and so it's one of those things where once it's signed, there's not much you can do about it. So they might as well just get it out of the way so we can get the biggest fight in our time, in our era. I'm actually excited. I don't know why you guys are that excited, because I remember going back to 2018 when they were trying to negotiate AJ Wilder, and that was such a pain to negotiate. So I'm glad they've agreed terms, and you know we're going to see this fight. I'm really looking forward to the fight.
Adam, what Cody said is true, right? Throughout the whole of 2018, we had the issues with AJ Wilder, purse splits, who's the A side, who's B side, and parts of 2019 as well, by the way. At least with this, we know that's done, right? We can at least get excited about that.
Like I say, I am excited because me being a big fan of heavyweight boxing, like most other people, we did wait too long for AJ Wilder. It was a bright pain. It was like, God, when's this fight going to happen? You know, it's like the undisputed fight was there. They put it off, whether it was Wilder's team, AJ's team, something to do with money. And then Ruiz beat AJ, and it just ruined the whole aura of that undisputed fight. And now Fury's coming and beat Wilder. So if we've got a chance of having this undisputed fight now, and they've announced it already, great. But like we say, we have got the hurdles there, haven't we? Usyk, Pulev's not a big risk, but you never know. After what Andy Ruiz did, Pulev, you know, he's still a good fighter. AJ is vulnerable, as we know. He's a great fighter, AJ is, but he's vulnerable. Deontay Wilder, you know, is he a threat to Fury now after the last fight? I'm not sure. Fury has beaten twice now, I would say. But it's Wilder. He's got that power, hasn't he? And if anyone can cause the upset, it's him with that right hand. So, yeah, like I say, I am excited. I don't know. I think it's got to happen for British boxing. If it don't, it'd be a travesty anyway. So, yeah.
Noah, you mentioned Dillian Whyte earlier. We all know the situation with the WBC and his mandatory shot. The WBC have come out and said that Dillian Whyte will get his shot. I just don't see how that's possible, especially if we are looking at a Fury-Joshua fight in the summer of 2021. Someone is fucking lying here, right? And someone needs to get found out. What do you think is going to happen with Dillian Whyte? It seems like, from me anyway, that they're going to elevate Tyson Fury to a franchise championship, and they're going to give Dillian Whyte the belt. They're going to say, here's the belt, take it. It's the belt you've been asking for. Can you see that happening? Or can you see somehow Dillian Whyte sort of getting in there before AJ and having, I don't know, a Dillian Whyte-Tyson Fury matchup? What's your thoughts?
Pretty much everyone involved, apart from Dillian Whyte, wants him out the way, just so they can make the most money off this one, and obviously have those big names as the champions. But like you say, I think if he doesn't get the proper title, I think they'll do the old super regular franchise, regular champion, whatever it is. Otherwise, I think, you know, Dillian Whyte's going to do some money, because, you know, they took the piss really, haven't they?
Yeah. Coyote, they're talking about a 2-fight deal for AJ Fury. Why does there need to be a 2-fight deal? Personally, I feel like it holds up the division. I think we're seeing it now with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, right? No one needs to see a trilogy, but because they signed up for a 2 or 3 fight deal, they're having to do that. And we've seen the backlog now. There's a backlog of fighters waiting. Dillian Whyte's waiting for his shot as well. Why can't they just have a 1-fight deal and then see what happens, right? If the fight's competitive and we need to do it again, then yeah, do it again. I mean, if AJ or Fury gets knocked out in a couple of rounds, why do we need to see it again?
Fighters, no one wants to take a risk. Eddie, I think the other day Eddie was saying something about Pulev might be a rematch contract or something. And normally for mandatories, you don't get a rematch. But this, you know, promoters are getting smarter. They're all putting rematches into the contract. And so I would imagine that kind of fight, for them to even decide the terms, a rematch has to be in there. If it's not in there, I'm definitely sure AJ won't fight. I'm sure Fury won't fight. So, unfortunately, that's what is required to make big fights this day. You definitely need the rematch. If you don't have it, they're not going to take the fight.
All right, guys, no fence sitting here. You know where I stand with this one. If the fight was to happen tomorrow, who wins? Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury. Adam, I'll start with you.
It's hard to say after what he did to Deontay Wilder, but I would have said points before. But my money's on Tyson Fury, yeah.
Noah, same thing to you as well. No fencing. Who are you picking?
Fury, based on recent performances, his size, and just how I think he's just got more layers to him than Joshua. But I mean, I think it's one of them where if they fought 10 times, they could easily beat each other 5 times. So
KOD, what about you? Don't let me down. Surely, Nigerian, you're going to pick Anthony Joshua.
Yes, I'm gonna go for my boy, and it's not just because we're Nigerian, but I actually think Joshua has Fury's number. I think styles make fights. I think that if you look at a few of Fury's fights, I think he was auto walling. He was doing certain things where he was landing big shots on Fury. You know, he was landing left hooks on Fury. I think that if Fury fights AJ the way he fought Wilder, I think there's going to be an early stoppage. I think if he fights AJ the way he fought Klitschko, it could well go the distance. So it depends on what style Fury comes with. But I've always felt like AJ's style, it would be a nightmare for Fury. That's what I've always thought.
Adam, quick one. Coyote there just mentioned Otto Volin. It's almost like as fans, we've forgotten about the Otto Volin performance, right? He did look very bad about a year ago against an unknown Otto Volin. It's almost like as fans, we only remember what they done recently, and that obviously was Deontay Wilder. Have we forgotten about the Otto Volin performance?
Well, I think we can all agree that AJ's got the very better resume of the two. Well, what we have noticed in the past that Tyson Fury does rise to the occasion. So if he's fighting someone who's not as good, he doesn't always seem to fight as good. But then when he steps into the ring with the likes of Vlad and Wilder, he rises to the occasion. But no, I haven't forgot the Otto Wallin's performance. But again, Otto Wallin, who's he fought? You know, is he a good boxer? We just don't know it. But if you compare his performance to when he could fight AJ could be very, very well be with a chance as well. So, but I think Fury just rises to the occasion, depending on who he's fighting.
All right, let's switch gears here a little bit. The Ring Magazine recently updated all their heavyweight rankings. They had Tyson Fury as champion. Obviously, they had AJ as number 1. They had Dillian Whyte as number 2, and they had Deontay Wilder as number 3. Now, I made a video about this. I tried to be as fair as possible, and I find him difficult to split as well. Obviously, the Americans are coming at me saying Deontay Wilder absolutely should be in front of Dillian Whyte. Some of them think in front of AJ. Where do you guys have it? Noah, coming to you, where do you guys have it? Do you have Dillian Whyte above Deontay Wilder, or would you still have Deontay Wilder above Dillian Whyte?
Sorry, it's a few.
Yeah, similar to like Coyote said with the Nigerian thing, I'm a bit of a Dillian Whyte fanboy. I've been to see him like 3-4 times, so I'm going to kind of say Dillian on that one. I understand both points, and I guess what you could equally do is have them at joint 3. In terms of kind of who they fought, Dylan's fought the better guys. But at the same time, if they both fought each other today, I think you'd have to say Wilder is the favourite. But I guess it's just a case of how you prefer these ranking systems to work. It's like if you're number 1 and you lose to number 2, do you go to number 2 and then the other guy goes to number 1, or do you go to the back of the queue and work your way up? So I think it's definite. I don't think there's a clear answer on it. I would say I think Dillian Whyte has to go above Wilder based on both of their past 3 or 4 opponents and performances.
All right, Noah, I'm going to stick with you here. Give me your top 5 heavyweights.
So I would say, I think you still have to go with one because of the amount of belts that he's got and his consistency of high level opponents. And obviously the 3 belts. Number 2, Fury. Number 3, Dillian Whyte. And then number 4, I would say Wilder. And then I would say number 5, toss up between Povetkin, and you have to take Ruiz into account as well. So I would say probably Povetkin just because of more of the proven consistent track record, as opposed to with Ruiz. He obviously had a close fight with Parker and then obviously beating AJ. But I think in terms of the kind of consistent, solid performances at that high level, Povetkin number 5.
Coyote, what about you? Who's your top 5?
So my top 5, I'll put AJ at number 1, Tyson Fury number 2. I'll put Dillian Whyte number 3. I'll put Wilder number 4. And possibly Povetkin number 5. Now, can I just quickly say something on this? So I think that when AJ lost, he was number 1 and he fell all the way to number 4, if I remember, right? So why are these Americans complaining? You know, I always have these conversations with these Americans, like, fair is fair, right? And the truth is, like you said, White actually has a better resume than Wilder, in my opinion, anyway. And I think Wilder, and this is my opinion, Wilder, I think he's been protected so much. I think that he hasn't fought the best competition. You can't just knock out 32 bombs and then claim you're the best knockout artist. Yeah, if you were knocking out 32 top contenders, then yeah, I would agree to that. So I think Wilder has a lot of hype around his resume, and so I don't really rate him that much. But he's been a champion, he's a former champion, so you have to give him something for that. But his resume is terrible. It's pretty bad, in my opinion, anyway.
Adam, both Noah and Coyote had AJ above Fury on their rankings. Me personally, I have Fury as number 1, AJ number 2. I've spoken to you in the past. I think me and you are on the same wavelength with this one, right? You have Fury as number 1 and AJ as number 2, yeah?
I have got Fury as number 1. I do agree. I have said it. AJ has got the better resume, and he doesn't get enough credit for that. AJ doesn't. He gets a lot of stick, and he's got the best resume in the heavyweight division right now. But Tyson Fury's performance against Vladimir Klitschko's performances against Deontay Wilder speak for themselves, and he's the Ring Magazine WBC champion, which in my view are the best 2 belts in the division, especially the Ring Magazine. So I do have him as number 1 in the division, definitely.
Noah, keen to get your thoughts on this Dillian Whyte situation. I know you're a big Dillian Whyte fan. A lot of people recently said that Dillian Whyte should leave Matchroom. I think that's stupid. I think he's done very good things with Matchroom. He sells at arenas, decent pay-per-view numbers. But I can understand what they mean with regards to that conflict of interest with AJ, Eddie Hearn and the WBC situation. What are your thoughts? Should he stay with Matchroom, or should he maybe try and look at signing with a top rank or even a Frank Warren?
1000% you stay where you are, because Matchroom and Eddie Hearn have got the best heavyweights. They'll pay you the most. They've got the biggest platform. They'll put you on the best shows. And no matter where he goes elsewhere, he's still second fiddle to a Fiore if he goes to top ranking ESPN. I mean, where he is now, like I think we said it when we first spoke, is they've made him so rich. He's the biggest star in the UK aside from Joshua. And it's just a case of him biding his time and waiting it out, because eventually, those two are going to fight each other. And if he goes away to another network promoter or whatever, for example, if he went to Frank Warren, who's got no heavyweight, apart from Dubois and Joyce, that's going to make it double hard if he then wants to go back and fight AJ. So he just needs to stay where he is, keep doing what he's doing, making shitloads of money, and eventually he's going to get another crack at AJ, or 2 or 3 maybe.
Coyote, who should Dillian Whyte fight after Povetkin? And that's not me looking past Povetkin. I think Povetkin is a fantastic fighter, and I think it's going to be a great fight. I really do. But providing he gets past Povetkin, I mean, who next? He's not going to get AJ. He's not going to get Fury. He's not going to get Wilder. So when you look in that top 15, who should he pick out? Again, let's not forget he's a pay-per-view guy now as well. There will be people back at arenas, so he's got to sell tickets. So who makes sense in that top 15 for Dillian Whyte to fight next?
This is probably a dreamland type of wish. I think he should fight Wilder. I want to see him against Wilder. If he can't get Wilder, I think he should fight Ruiz. I'd love to see that. Yeah, those guys have been going back and forth on social media. I actually really want to see that fight. Those are the two. Those are my 2 picks for him. Really, he should fight. Yeah, one of those. He should go and beat up some of those Airman heavyweights, the PBC heavyweights. Just beat up any one of them. I'll be happy.
Adam, I'm going to chuck the same question to you. Who should Dillian Whyte fight next? And let's be honest, it's not going to be AJ or Fury. Coyote mentioned Deontay Wilder, that's a good option. Maybe Ortiz, Ruiz. Remember, he almost has to fight someone to keep him where he is now. Who would you pick?
I read earlier, which is quite an interesting take, is whether it'll happen or not, I don't know. Because of the undisputed fight and Fury possibly being elevated to this whole, I don't agree with it, this franchise champion thing. I've heard a rumour that it could be Dillian Whyte versus Deontay Wilder for the interim WBC belt, while Fury and AJ get their fight out of the way. I'd love to see that personally. I'm not a fan of interim belts, but I would like to see that. And then the winner of that fight fights the winner of AJ and Fury, and I think that would just be the perfect scenario then. So, yeah, Deontay Wilder.
Noah, is it Deontay Wilder for you as well? Is that a clean sweep, or would you prefer to see him maybe, I don't know, an Ortiz or an Andy Ruiz or someone else?
So I mean, I think he'll fight the winner of Fury and Wilder on Feb 22nd. I think that will happen. If it doesn't, I would say Ruiz is probably the better one. And I think that if Wilder doesn't have a belt, he's the kind of guy that you wouldn't fight just because you know you're better than him, but at the same time, you can be beating him for every second of every round like an Ortiz, and then you can get your lights turned off, and then after that, you might not come back. So I would say if he doesn't have a belt, don't go near him and go to Ruiz.
Coyote, let's switch away from Deontay Wilder, AJ Fury, Dillian White for a few minutes. Another big heavyweight fight that should have happened but got postponed because of COVID-19 was Daniel Dubois versus Joe Joyce. Who you got in that fight? I was always leaning towards Daniel Dubois. I think I'm going towards Joe Joyce now. Who are you picking between those two?
Yeah, I was actually really looking forward to that fight as well. I was actually going to go and see that fight. I was leaning towards Joe Joyce as well. And the reason why is I just think that if Joyce is able to take Dubois' punches and is able to absorb them, Dubois might be in for a really tough night. Joyce is a really good pressure fighter. And I know he looks very clumsy. He looks so slow, but he's effective at what he does, So I think it's a really good fight. I'm really still looking forward to it. Hopefully we'll get to see it before the end of the year.
Let's move away from heavyweights completely right now. Carl Froch done a recent interview with Sky Sports where he done his top 5 super middleweights. At number 5, I think he had Mikael Kessler. He then had Joe Calzaghe, the unbeaten Joe Calzaghe. He had himself, Andre Ward and Roy Jones Jr. Adam, I'm going to come to you first. Simple question, Carl Froch or Joe Calzaghe? Who is the better super middleweight? Who has the better resume? And who would have won between those two?
Best, without a doubt, was Joe Calzaghe. He would have beaten Carl Froch. The thing about Froch, I know he gets a lot of stick as well, but he never won his fights on boxing skill and being this amazing boxer. He won with grit and determination, didn't he? And that's why you've always got to take your hat off to Carl Froch. Every single fight he was in was a war. It was entertaining. He was a warrior, and that's the thing about Carl Froch. But to answer your question, I do rate Calzaghe over Carl Froch, and he is of all time better than Carl Froch, definitely. And they did get in the ring together. Joe Calzaghe would have beaten him, definitely.
Noah, same opinion as well. Do you think that Joe Calzaghe easily beats Carl Froch, or do you think that Carl Froch could get the job done? Carl Froch did say on that Sky Sports Boxing podcast that all Joe Calzaghe does was slap, and he said he will walk through those slaps and eventually get the job done. What do you think?
Yeah, first off, everyone, if you're not already listen to Carl Froch's podcast with Darren Fletcher, the guy from T Sports Football. Quality. They had Mikael Kessler on the one the past couple of days, talking about their 2 fights. That was good. In terms of who's better, I'd say Calzaghe better in terms of talent. In terms of kind of getting the most out of what you've got and overachieving, Froch, because what he achieved versus his actual skill and talent, he way overachieved. And I think if they both fought each other when they were both at the primes, which obviously came at different times, I think Calzaghe would have won on points, but not very easily. Like everyone says, I think it would have been a close one. But if they would have fought at the end after Calzaghe fought Roy Jones, when Froch was shouting for that fight, then after I think he was at the time when he fought Pascal, I think he would have beat Calzaghe then because Calzaghe was 36, 37. Froch was in his prime. So if it happened then, I think Froch would have done the old absorb a lot of pressure, take him down and knock him out towards the later end of the fight. But prime for prime, I think Calzaghe is better.
Coyote, let's talk about it. Prime for prime. So the best Carl Froch, I think the best Carl Froch was maybe Lucien Boutte versus the best Joe Calzaghe. Probably Jeff Lacey. So prime for prime, that Carl Froch versus that Joe Calzaghe. Who are you picking?
I'm definitely going with the lads. Calzaghe, definitely. I think that he would have outboxed him. I think that prime for prime, yeah, you have to go for Joe. I mean, if you look at his resume is actually quite good, and he was unbeaten as well. So I don't understand Froch when he says these things, but I understand that's how he is. But yeah, I would always pick Joe Calzaghe over him all day.
Adam, why does Carl Froch get so much stick? I feel like his career probably isn't given the respect it deserves. I mean, I look at some of the wins on his resume and it's a solid resume. Yes, he goes on about knocking out George Groves in front of 80,000. What's the problem? If I knocked out my nemesis in front of 80,000, I probably would. And let's be honest, it's a bit of tongue-in-cheek as well. But again, you look at that resume, it's a solid resume. He thinks he should be above Joe Calzaghe. He's got an argument. There is an argument there to say that what he done at super middleweight is maybe better than what Joe Calzaghe done at super middleweight. Is that not fair?
I think he comes across a little bit arrogant, doesn't he? But in my view, Carl Froch has earned the right to be a little bit arrogant because we seem to forget what George Groves put him through during the build-up to the two fights as well. George Groves gave a lot of stick out to Carl Froch, and it was definitely getting to Froch sometimes. And the first fight, he got a lot of stick because of the early stoppage, even though I actually think he would have went on to stop Groves. Groves won the boxing match, hands down, but I think Froch would have won the war. You know what Froch is like, he always comes back in the later rounds. But then the second fight, he beat him decisively in front of 80,000. And I think because Groves gave him so much stick in the build-up to those fights, he likes to remind Groves, so I actually knocked you out in the end. But I do think he comes across a bit arrogant when he's doing that. And that's why people give him that stick, if you know what I mean. Even though I don't think he means anything by it, he just means a bit of a banter. And he's earned the right to be like that as well, in my view.
Noah, who do you think would have won at the time? That Carl Froch that beat George Groves at Wembley or James DeGale around that time? There was a lot of talk about those two getting on. It never happened. But a lot of people think that James DeGale might have caused Carl Froch a lot of problems.
DeGale then. I think DeGale was an absolute in them days. If you're talking about the Durrell performance, I think he was an absolute beast. I think you can't count out Froch in terms of his toughness and his ability to kind of withstand a storm and a lot of pressure. But I just think in his prime, that kind of couple of years where, you know, he did Durrell and then he went on and fought Badu Jack, I just thought he was an animal. And I think him being in his prime at that point versus Froch-Calzaghe was at, I think he would have kind of lit him up and just been catching him with them six-punch combinations that he used to throw from kind of left-handed and right-handed, and I think he would have beat Froch on points.
Coyote, Canelo's the biggest name in the sport right now. There's been so much speculation as to who Canelo's going to fight in his return. Is it going to be Billy Joe Saunders, Golovkin, Benavidez, Plant? If you could pick an opponent for Canelo to fight in his return to the ring in September, who are you choosing?
Canelo fight Andrade. I would like to see him come back to 160 and fight Andrade, get all the belts there and become undisputed. I don't like this whole jumping around different weight classes, you know. I'm not a fan of it. So stay in the 160 division, become undisputed if you can. I think Andrade has the beating of Canelo, but at the same time it's Canelo, so you never know. But yeah, I'd love to see that fight. I would love to. Someone should give Andrade a chance to fight Canelo. Yeah. So yeah, that's my picking.
Adam, I didn't expect him to say Andrade there. Andrade is almost like the forgotten man of the 160-pound division. Are you with that as well? Can you see Canelo dropping back down to 160 pounds and taking on Andrade? Or who else? Who have you got?
Me personally, I'd like to see GGG get his rightfully deserved win over Canelo, but I don't think it's going to happen now. So for that reason, I'd like to see the trilogy fight with GGG, but I just got a feeling if they have another fight, it's going to be another decisions points win to Canelo. I'd like to see him fight Bertabiev at light heavyweight. I know he's probably too big for Canelo, but he went up to light heavy. He took Kovalev's belt. Kovalev, you know, he beat Yard. I know Yard was his first fight at world level. But I would love to see him fight Bertabiev at light heavyweight. And if he beat Bertabiev at light heavyweight, there's no doubt that he's this generation's great, isn't he, at the end of the day? So, yeah, that's who I would like to see him fight next.
Noah, interesting, right? You got Coyote saying he should fight a middleweight. You got Adam saying he should fight a light heavyweight. I guess that just shows how big Canelo is right now in the sport of boxing, that he's got his pick between 160 and 175 pounds. Who do you think, or who do you want him to fight when he does return to boxing?
Billy Joe Saunders. In terms of that being, in terms of what I think he's the most interesting opponent for him, in terms of, I think he's probably the one around that weight that's got the best chance of beating him. In terms of the one that I'd rather watch the most, probably I would say like a Eubank Jr. Because I think that'd be but he's with PBC, so it's not going to happen. But then I realised before that Golden Boy have also got Munguia, who's gone up to middleweight, and the fight that you've seen with him and Liam Smith, they both just kind of stood in like the cliche with the telephone box and just slugged it out. So I think that would be a good one. Just to Adam's point as well, if he fought Beterbiev, he would get absolutely smoked in under 6 rounds. It's like fighting your big brother. That's not a matchup.
Yeah, I agree. I think Beterbiev's a monster. They actually remind me of each other, just that Beterbiev's a lot bigger. I mean, if he fights at 175, he probably walks around at like 200 pounds. Yeah, so that's not an easy fight for Canelo. Cody, if it is Billy Joe Saunders, what chance do you give Billy Joe Saunders of beating Canelo?
No chance. Canelo wins on points every day. You know, just ask me any question, and the answer is Canelo on points. There's no way Billy Joe Saunders is going to beat him on points. Like, and you guys know what I'm talking about. It's just not going to happen. So, and Billy Joe Saunders is not going to knock out Canelo. So, yeah.
Cody, I'm going to stick with you on this one. What about an exciting fight from a fan standpoint? Noah mentioned Chris Eubank Jr. And I actually agree. Look, I'm not saying Chris Eubank Jr. will beat Canelo, but I think for about 7 or 8 rounds, it's going to be an exciting fight. Chris Eubank Jr., we know, will bring it. Any interest in seeing Eubank Jr. versus Canelo?
Yeah, definitely. So someone like Eubanks Jr., Benavides, that would be a top fighter as well. So I'd love to see those fights. To be fair, there's different people Canelo that can fight, you know, and will give us some exciting fights. So even the Charlo brothers, he should fight one of them as well, you know. So who else? Who else would give us a top fight? I actually want to see him against Beterbiev as well. I think that would be such a fun fight. I think he'll get knocked out though.
Adam, I'm going to come to you on this one. We keep hearing about Billy Joe Saunders versus Canelo. We know there's been discussions in the past about Callum Smith versus Canelo. Why can't we just get Callum Smith versus Billy Joe Saunders on? It's a unification fight, 2 belts on the line. I mean, what's stopping that from happening? It will do a small stadium over here. I'm not saying it will do Anfield, but it will definitely do an arena. It's a big fight. Why don't we just get Callum Smith versus Billy Joe Saunders on as they both wait for Canelo? And maybe the winner fight Canelo.
I think they're both matchroom fighters now, aren't they? So it should be easy enough to make. From what I've heard, Billy Joe's team has made the offer to Smith's team a few times and nothing's materialised. But that should be the fight. Billy Joe's got the WBO. Callum Smith's got the Ring magazine and he's got the Diamond belt. I think Benavides has got the WBC. So they definitely should fight. It should be Billy Joe Saunders versus Callum Smith, definitely. Callum Smith's a little bit boring when it comes to hyping the fight, isn't he? Good to watch, but he's a little. Well, Billy Joe will hype the fight anyway. But yeah, he should. I think it'll be a massive. Well, not massive, but it'll be a big English fight, definitely. So it should happen, definitely.
No, Tyson Fury said in a recent interview that if he beats AJ, he basically ends Matchroom, pointing out that maybe Matchroom don't have that many stars. Where are the next stars with Matchroom? I mean, you look at it and it's like AJ, and then it's like that. I mean, who's the next biggest star? They've got Dillian White, maybe Derek Chisora. Obviously, Derek Chisora, though, has maybe got 1 or 2 fights left. Dillian White's not young either. What's going on at Matchroom? Where are the next big stars? Where's the next AJ?
I think that you can use Joshua as where's the next Joshua, because I guess it's like saying, oh, where's the next Messi or Ronaldo? They're the exception rather than the rule. So I'm not sure that you are going to see anybody at that kind of A-star level. I think they're probably realising that as well and probably thinking if we can get 4 or 5 guys at that kind of level. Because where they're at now, I mean, all the eggs are in that one basket and then everything else comes later on. Whereas I guess if they can kind of, have 4 or 5 of those, B-level guys, 4 or 5 Dylan White, Josh Warrington type people, then I think they would. I'm not saying they would prefer it, but they would probably take that. Probably planning for that.
Cody, what are your thoughts? Do you feel like they put all their eggs in one basket with AJ? Or they had to? AJ is just such a big star, like what Noah said. Or can you understand where I'm coming from? When you look at someone like PBC, for example, and there's like 5 or 6 stars over there. You've got the Charlo twins, you've got Javonte Davis, you've got Deontay Wilder, you've got Errol Spence, all guys that are probably in and around the same level in terms of sort of star power. Where I guess with Matchroom, it really is AJ, then Vum. What are your thoughts on it?
You put too much on AJ. And you know what? I don't blame them. If you've got someone like AJ, you build your career, you build your financial house on that, and you make the most of it while you can. So you don't blame them. Like my friend said, someone like AJ, you only get that for yeah, it's one of those rare things that you probably will never find for the next 10 years or 20 years. So yeah, so make the best of it while you can, and I think that's what Eddie's trying to do. And to be fair, he's trying to build stars especially in America with the zone. So he's doing his best as well, but he obviously understands that the gravy train is AJ, so he's gonna milk that for the rest as long as he can, really, till AJ retires. So yeah.
All right, guys, final 5 minutes. I'm going to chuck a couple fights at you for your predictions. No fence sitting. Adam, I'm going to start with you. If they were to fight tomorrow, who wins, Anthony Yarde or Buatsi?
I'm going to say Anthony Yarde because Buatsi hasn't been proven enough yet. We know Yarde, he went in with Kovalev and put on a decent performance. Yes, he lost, but until we see more from Buatsi, he's definitely got great skill. He's a great fighter. He's good on the eye. He's nice to watch. But until we see more from him at that level that Yarde has fought at now, we've got to go on to the Yarde.
Noah, quick one for you as well. If they were to fight tomorrow, who wins, Teofimo Lopez, Gervonta Davis?
I would say Teofimo. I think he obviously has size. I'm not sure that this is Gervonta's first weight class either. So I think that's a factor. And I think this kid, Lopez, with what he did with Comer, he just doesn't seem fazed by anything. He just seems like a stone cold killer to me. And then on top of that, I mean, you never seem to see Lopez, fucking around, getting drunk at shows with the Charlos and Spence, and standing outside, with Lamborghinis in the street and messing around and beating up his girlfriend. You don't see that from him. He seems like he's all about business. Whereas I think Gervonta has got a little bit of the Adrian Broner about him. So I think if he doesn't curb that, he's going to go the same way.
Coyote, I've got a tough one for you. Sorry, dude, it just came to my head. If they were to fight right now, who wins? Terence Crawford, Errol Spence.
Right now, Crawford. Come on, Errol Spence. We still don't know the residual effect of what happened to him. So I won't put him against Crawford right now. Right now, I think Crawford definitely beats him. But let's see Errol against Danny Garcia, and let's see where he is, and then we can kind of judge that fight. I still favor Crawford because I like Crawford. So Crawford is one of my favorite fighters. So I'll pick him any day against any of the welterweights.
All right, final question for everyone. Adam, I'm going to start with you. Removing Joshua Fury and Wilder, because I've just had enough of hearing about that right now. What fight are you most looking forward to seeing when boxing starts again?
If it happens, Canelo versus Billy Joe Saunders. It's been in the talks. So, yeah, that's the fight on. Obviously, Billy Joe, he can keep his nose clean. Being a Brit, I'd like to see him go to America and fight Canelo. So, yeah, that's the fight I was most looking forward to when I heard it. So,
same to you, Noah. What are you looking forward to?
Top level one, which is going to be White and Povetkin. I don't think either of them has got a backward step or quitting them whatsoever. That's just going to be absolute chaos. And then at kind of the lower level as well, Cheeseman and Eggington. Both of them get hit a lot. Both of them are just come forward animals. And I think that's probably going to happen in the back garden as well. So I think that would be absolute carnage as well to those two.
And finally, yourself, Cody, what fight are you looking forward to? And not Fury, Wilder, AJ. I don't even want to hear those names right now.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it before. Joyce Dubois. I really want to see that fight. I think it's going to be such an exciting fight. I can't wait to see it. Hopefully, I'll be able to see it in person as well. So yeah, that's my fight.
Guys, that's it. Time's up. 40 minutes is gone. Just like that. I can't thank you enough for sharing your time with me. I can't wait to see who gets the most stick in the comment section. I feel like Coyote, you and your Matrix background might get a bit of stick. But guys, thank you so much for being the first guinea pigs on this Ade and Friends. And we're obviously all going to chat again sometime later. No doubt about it. We're going to get you on and do more of this. But thank you so much for being the first participants. Peace.